Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News on 3FM. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Kasmi 107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. We need your help to stop the government from giving tax waivers to certain companies. Minority in Parliament knocks on the door of the Supreme Court to stop Ghana Revenue Authority from proceeding to implement tax waivers. We'll bring you details of that. Also on the program, Auditor General is citing Ghana in its report for failing to prevent and reduce solid and plastic waste pollution in its coastal environment. We'll bring you a live situational report. Much later, we return to the minority in Parliament, which is petitioning Shraj to probe what it calls offensive recruitment into Ghana's security agencies. Thank you very much for joining us today. Now, the Supreme Court is being urged to restrain the Ghana Revenue Authority from proceeding to implement tax waivers granted certain companies under the One District, One Factory policy. The legislators believe that the parliamentary memorandum based on which the finance minister sought the approval of the House for the waivers is unconstitutional. Members of the minority, therefore, are asking the Supreme Court to restrain the Ghana Revenue Authority from allowing these 42 companies to enjoy the waivers. Let's look at the details of the suit. It says the plaintiffs are asking for the plaintiffs, Bernard Ahiafo, Kwame Gavins Boja, Emmanuel Amakofibua. These are the petitioners, and the defendants are the Minister for Finance, Commissioner General, Ghana Revenue Authority, Speaker of Parliament, and the Attorney General. Now, let me run you through the reliefs being sought. That the Supreme Court restrains the defendants or respondent from taking any further steps towards implementation of 1D, 1F tax waivers granted 42 companies. The main concern is found in a memorandum of understanding dated 28th of February 2019, upon which the Finance Ministry sought parliamentary approval for the tax waivers, and the minority members are saying this is unconstitutional, and that also the finance minister lacks the power to request such waivers. We'll be speaking to a member or one of the petitioners seeking this very shortly. You're still here on the Midday News on 3FM. Stay with us. Stay with the minority also because this afternoon the same group has petitioned the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice to investigate ongoing what they call secret and equal and unfair recruitment by the government into the Ghana Immigration Service, Ghana National Fire Service, Ghana Police Service, Ghana Prison Service, and the Narcotics Control Commission. Now, a copy of the petition, which 3FM has cited, indicates, quote, the recruitment starts this week, and therefore the petitioners say that intended recruitment by the Ghana Immigration Service, the Ghana National Fire Service, Ghana Police Service, prisons, and NACOC offend the 1992 Constitution. Ahead of the crucial 2024 general election, the NDC minority recently blew the alarm on the alleged sharing of slots to NPP MPs and parliamentary candidates across the country to facilitate the recruitment of what they describe as NPP thugs into the security services. The NDC minority said that they remain resolute and vigilant and will employ every legitimate means to stop this secret, illegal and unfair recruitment. Those are the words of the NDC minority petitioning in charge on this matter. I would again read to you some of the relief sought from the minority members in that petition submitted to Shraj. And it says, as means of ensuring equal access to all, the security services and other administrative organs of the state, including the respondent, and the respondents hereby being the Immigration Service, National Service, Police Service, Prisons and NACOC, and indeed the Customs, Excise and Preventive Service, SHRA should direct that recruitment into these public services should be effected through public advertisement in the national newspapers or dailies, setting out eligibility criteria for potential applicants, candidates for such recruitment. Again, it says concerning applicant or candidate already shortlisted or being prepared for recruitment based on a purported backlog as announced per the Chronicle publication on the 8th of July 2024, as well as the Ghana Police Service and Prisons press release of 7th July 2023. Now, SHRA should direct these respondents to provide details of the process and procedures adopted by them in line with the Constitution, as well as Section 7AB of Act 456. The last one I read to you says, other remedies or reliefs that SHRA may deem fair and just to ensure transparency and equal access to security agencies, particularly the Ghana National Fire Service, the Immigration Service, Police Service, Prisons and NACOC in terms of recruitment. Some more on these stories, but let's move on to some other issues, because the Auditor General is reporting that Ghana is failing to prevent and reduce solid and plastic waste pollution in its coastal environment. Thus, the Auditor General notes, leaves the country far from being able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal target of preventing and reducing marine pollution. This is contained in a special audit conducted by the office with the aim of assessing the extent to which Ghana is meeting this target. Let's run you through again aspects of this report. And this Auditor General's report covers 2019 to 2023. The goal was to assess prevention and reduction of solid and plastic waste on Ghana's coastal environment. Again, it looked at meeting SDG target 14.1, which is to prevent and significantly reduce marine pollution of all kinds, particularly from land-based activities including marine debris and nutrient pollution. Now, the findings from what it did: strategies developed by district assemblies inconsistent with national policies, thereby making implementation a problem. Also, metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies had challenges in providing containers in all communities as receptacles for waste and ensuring timely evacuation of waste stored to landfill sites. As a result, communities dumped solid or plastic waste at unapproved sites, including seashores along the coast. No assurance that the implementation of government plans was achieving the target, that is the SDG target 14.1. It makes some recommendations, though, that the National Development Planning Commission, NDPC, should coordinate with the Ghana Statistical Service and other stakeholders to build capacities of the MMDAs to enable them collect relevant data and enhance decision making. But let me remind you that even as the Auditor General is bringing out this report, former Chief Justice Afful had also hinted of her unsatisfaction, as it were, regarding even the ministry that has been set up, the sanitation ministry. Listen to an interview he granted earlier to Alfredo Kansi.
So many things are not working. Let's take sanitation. What sanitation law don't we have? What ordinances, from the days of ordinances to regulations all the way to date? What enactments don't we have? What departments don't we have?
We have a ministry for that matter.
Which was so totally unnecessary, because it's not a ministry that is going to do the work. Sanitation is the work of local government.
Sanitation ministry is an unnecessary ministry.
Absolutely. What have they done?
They were pursuing the president's promise of making Accra the cleanest city.
Is it? Isn't it dirtier than it was before the ministry was set up? Isn't it? When was the last time you even saw any, other than neighborhoods getting together to clean gutters?
And you heard the former Chief Justice Afful in that interview earlier. We are joined by Patrick Apoya, who is the former Executive Secretary of the Coalition of NGOs in Water and Sanitation. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Mr. Apoya, yes. Can you hear us?
Yes, good morning.
Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, one would have thought that the main challenge will be that of resource mobilization to fight this, but it does appear that policy implementation is the major concern. Are you surprised at this finding by the Auditor General?
Yes, I've seen the Auditor General's report. Largely, I agree with it. There are a few issues that probably were not put in the right context. If I should just pick on the last submission about the role of the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources in this, I think it should be clear in people's minds that whether the Ministry of Sanitation is handling the policy of sanitation or the local government, it is the MNDAs, the assemblies, that are responsible. The question of where the policy lies is due to years of the fact that we need to program sanitation and water side by side. And I should say that since we moved the programming of sanitation and water together, we have actually seen remarkable progress in the last 5, 6, 7 years compared to when they were separate. We are not talking about they being in Ministry of Sanitation, but the two must be programmed together. Wherever that can lie and we can program, so that is okay. But getting to the issue of the solid waste management, the fundamental issue is actually resources mobilization. I also couldn't find out how the Auditor General's report could miss the biggest funding initiative of government to address solid waste issues in the coastal area, which is the Garrett project. The Garrett project, which is heavily funded and seeing how to tackle the Odo Basin, comprising 17 MDAs that are contributing over 70% of the coastal pollution challenge, is something I really couldn't understand how such a big initiative could be missed. It indicated that assemblies couldn't measure, track what quantities they're generating and collecting, which unfortunately is not the case when it comes to the 17 MMDAs in Greater Accra. There has been a baseline survey. We know exactly how much waste is generated. We know exactly the composition of plastics in the waste stream. All MMDAs within this area know exactly what waste they collect per day, what they're able to treat. And I can tell you that before 2017, collectively, these MMDAs were collecting and disposing of 65% of waste generated daily. Today, they are actually hauling over 85% of the waste generated daily.
So
the issue about waste is that
what you
it
say
is cumulative. And once you use your eyes, you can't use your eyes to judge whether it was better yesterday or it is better today. It's also the fact that waste volumes have also increased per capita because of development. Lifestyles are changing. More waste is being generated, and it doesn't make people see what effort the assemblies are making. The Ministry of Local Government or Ministry of Sanitation, they do the policy making and have to capacitate MMDA.
But
now, the chronic financial situation facing MMD is. It's not only about sanitation. I think all the activities were curtailed. And that is how come they are also struggling with what they need to be able to tackle the sanitation problem.
But is that not, aren't you emphasizing what the Auditor General is saying? Because, yes, you talk about the financial bit, and I don't think that's something that probably the Auditor General is doing away with. It talks about, for instance, the MMDAs and the policies they have not, or rather being inconsistent with national policies, and that's where you have a problem with implementation. But if the debt, we're having a lot of waste coming up, that's why there should be strategies as to how to meet up the waste that you're generating. Is that not the issue? Is that not the same thing the Auditor General is saying?
No, I think, and that's also where I think the report got it wrong. Because we're trying to compare policy, like what are the principles that guide our sanitation efforts versus what are the strategic policies that we have put in place. At the lower levels, there is no inconsistency. What rather we have is gaps. The national policy may say, do A, B, C, D. But when you get to the ground, they might just be doing E, F, and they're not able to tackle 3 of them. That's a gap. A gap meaning this is where they ought to have reached. But because of resource constraints, they're only doing up to this level. But the details of what that report outlined as, this is what the national strategy says. And when they go to the district, this is what it says. It's actually not the way to interpret it. Because even if you go by the strategy, the issues that the district people are doing, they are doing operational issues. If you set up your policy at the top, when it gets to the district level, they will now, how do we now operationalize that? So what they were telling out in the district environmental sanitation action plan, strategy action plan, were actually the actual operationalization of the national policies. And you do not expect that whatever is the national policy, the same thing is going to be repeated at the district level. No.
We'll have to end it here. We'll continue this conversation later. Thank you very much, Mr. Apoya, with Coniwas. Thank you for speaking to us. Let's return to our earlier story about the Supreme Court being urged to restrain the Ghana Revenue Authority from proceeding to implement tax waivers granted certain companies under the One District, One Factory. We're joined by Bernard Afful. He is a South MP, one of the petitioners. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners and viewers. And thank you for having me.
What's your main issue? The government says that it wants to industrialize the country. It's brought up One District, One Factory. It wants to incentivize the companies that are involved, and therefore is thinking of giving these 42 companies, as it were, tax waivers. You have an issue with it. Why?
Yes, our issue is based on Article 174 of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. We believe strongly that when a procedure is set down for a right to be exercised, it is this procedure that will have to be followed in exercising the right. Article 174 of the 1992 Constitution is very clear as to how issues of that nature should be dealt with. We felt that the way and the manner the Finance Ministry is dealing with that particular issue is repugnant with the 1992 Constitution in Article 174. And the Constitution vests the power to interpret the Constitution in the Supreme Court. That is why we are at the Supreme Court seeking for an interpretation and consequential declaratory release.
Even before the Supreme Court comes in with its own interpretation, what do you mean, or what does the minority mean by way and manner in which the Finance Ministry is going about this?
Well, our reliefs are spelled out in the writ that we have issued at the Supreme Court. So as a party to the suit, discussing that will amount to commenting on the matter subjudice, which I am not prepared to do. So you can pick a copy of the writ that we have issued. You can pick a copy of our statement attached to the writ. We are seeking for an interlocutory relief by way of an injunction. We have the motion paper with the supporting affidavit and all the annexes. So they are self-explanatory. But as a party to the suit, I beg not to be led into commenting on the matter subjudice. Being a lawyer, I know its implications.
We'll have to end it here then. Thank you very much, Bernard Ahiafo, Akachi South MP, one of the petitioners asking the Supreme Court to stop the Ghana Revenue Authority and other agencies from giving tax waivers to about 42 companies under the One District, One Factory initiative by the government. Now, North Tongue Member of Parliament Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa will today meet with the Office of the Special Prosecutor to aid the office with investigations into the alleged $34.9 million procurement deal for ambulance spare parts. Mr. Ablakwa petitioned the OSP to investigate the deal, accusing former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta and former Health Minister Kwekwa Manu of colluding with a private company to defraud the state. Listen to what he told us earlier.
The communication I'm receiving today from the Office of Special Prosecutor is that they will be interviewing me on Monday. They said that they will like to hear me out on Monday, which indicates that they are proceeding to commence full-scale investigation. So I'm very excited about that for God and country in the national interest. And I've told them that I will make myself available on Monday to provide all the information that I have on this latest scandal. Ultimately, our $10 million must be retrieved.
You heard Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa. He is a member of Parliament for North Tongue who has petitioned the Office of the Special Prosecutor to probe what he calls overpricing of spare parts for ambulances, about $34.9 million. We're joined by Adam Senano, who is co-chair Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Senano, I know you've been following not just this issue, but other corruption-related issues as well. We saw a statement from the Health Ministry explaining how things went. Is this invitation still in order by the OSP?
Well, it is. I don't see how the letter or the statement from the Health Ministry addresses any of the core issues raised by Honorable Ablakwa. Really, that letter doesn't take away any of the significant issues. How was this company contracted without a track record? I mean, that's not supposed to happen. Single source. It does not address the value for money issues. It does not address the fact that the company was supposed to have had its own staff and yet was using our state transport staff who were at work, supposed to be at work, and yet earning separately. It does not address any of the core issues, except to say we've paid only 10 million, and that 10 million ought to be retrieved. So it's not helpful. I think that the OSP is doing the right thing by continuing with the investigation, inviting Mr. Ablakwa, and hopefully we'll get to the bottom of the matter.
And I prefixed my first question with the fact that you follow other corruption-related matters. I mean, how do you feel about the fact that we are getting individuals revealing some of these corrupt deals when we have institutions that are responsible for fishing out how the country is spending its monies and going where exactly?
Well, on one hand, it's exciting to know that there are whistleblowers willing to stand up to ensure that the right thing is done. And I wish that every Ghanaian becomes a whistleblower. Let's begin to name and shame and retrieve and ensure that this kind of impunity does not continue. But on the other hand, it's clearly a case that our internal systems are not working. Because you're supposed to have a procurement unit that determines the processes and insists that the legally required processes are followed. You are supposed to have an internal audit system that's supposed to notice things like this and raise them, flag them. And there are supposed to be directors in place who ought to write minutes and memo and say, this ought to have gone to Parliament, this ought to have been approved by PPA first. And none of that seems to be happening. It just means that we're potentially paying other people in the public service for jobs they are not doing or jobs that they are refusing, they are checking their obligations under the arrangements that they have contractually. And that's actually a shame.
What are your final words with this, the OSP just picking this thing up going forward?
The OSP should proceed to unearth what exactly happened. I think that the Ministry of Health should not think that they have thrown sand into our eyes. That response does not tell us anything. You've paid 10 million out of how many millions of dollars? Do we even have those resources at the time that this country is struggling? So let's get to the bottom of matter. And if somebody needs to pay back, let's call them back and make sure that all these monies are retrieved.
And perhaps prosecutions to follow, because we didn't hear anything on the vaccine
absolutely.
thing for
it
Manu.
is important that we do not seem to be favoring one group and letting another group go, maybe because they are the elite or they are supposed to be the high and mighty. No, let everyone who has taken unduly, illegally, robbed our purses, taking advantage of the system to enrich themselves, let them cough up the money, and if they have to be sanctioned, if they have to be jailed, let all of that follow up, and let's set the right examples for this country.
We'll end it here. Thank you very much, Adam Senano, co-chair, Citizens Movement Against Corruption, now former president and NDC flag bearer John Mahama says 4 years is enough for every leader to make meaningful impact than 8 years. He spoke at the launch of the national campaign of the NDC in Tamale over the weekend. Take a listen.
I've been out of government for almost 8 years now. I did my best. I wouldn't say things were perfect, but at least we're making progress. What I can promise you is that I will be truthful to you. I will never tell you lies. I'll never tell you things that I can't do. The problem with this country is that our policies are based on the short cycle of winning elections every 4 years. And we're not creating the foundation for this economy to take off. And so, we're not making you promises. I'm promising you that I'll work hard, day and night, to make sure that we reset the fortunes of this country. 4 years of a good leader will make more impact than 8 years of a dishonest leader.
You heard that former President John Mahama. We're joined for a quick conversation by Dr. Asan Sante. He is a political science lecturer at the University of Ghana. Good afternoon to you, Doc. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
I'm wondering what your thoughts are on what the former president said, that 4 years is enough. Earlier, we had heard say that 4 years may not be enough to do what you have to do.
As for politicians, sometimes you can also have no choice than to understand them, the difference between when you are in politics and outside it, sometimes. But that aside, what I glean from his statement is that, look, when you are given any period of time to govern, you have no excuse to say that, look, I'm not able to deliver simple recourse, the time is short and all that. The little that you have, do something so that at the end of the day, when the people do all the mathematics of it, they can assess what you have done and say that we are extending your mandate, or we are throwing out. That's it. So time, yes, even though if you have more time, you'll be able, all things being equal, you'll be able to do enough. But a little time given to you, just do something and give yourself opportunity to be ask questions about the stewardship of your office. That is the essence of any period given to you. It is not for fun. That famous of the Constitution gave 4 years. So they believe that 4 years, at least, you'll be able to do something. That is exactly what we are expecting from politicians.
So you agree with that fact that he's made a fact that when you're given the opportunity, you should make use of it. But how should Ghanaians trust him? He's been here before.
That it is for him to prove to Ghanaians that this time around he's going to take what people have said and what he has noted seriously and work according to his plan. I'm not the one to defend him as to whether people will believe him or not. But the real issue about politics is that when you are looking for power, you need to demonstrate beyond doubt that you are capable of meeting our demands. You are capable of addressing our needs. So here we expect Mr. Mahama to be able to convince us beyond reasonable doubt that if given the chance, within the 4 years, he will do as expected of him. And that is for him to answer that question.
Dr. Asasante, thank you very much. He's a political science lecturer at the University of Ghana. Thank you for speaking to us. Now, an Accra High Court has adjourned to October 22 one of three cases challenging the anti-LGBTQI bill recently passed by Parliament. Private citizen Paul Boamasifa contends that the processes used by Parliament are unconstitutional. We'll bring you more of this in our subsequent bulletins. And that's how we end the news here on Shri FM. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us today. Log on to shrinews.com for more news. Manu Afful is standing by with Business Daily. Have a good afternoon.
Good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, Bank of Ghana says elevated credit risk poses threat to banking sector's recovery as banks record 24.1% increase in non-performing loans in June 2024. Also, economists Carrie Buti cites low investor confidence as government misses Treasury bills targets for third consecutive week.
The Treasury probably may be accumulating some buffers against either interest payment or coupon payment or some budgetary support.
Plus, Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative accuses Forestry Commission and Environmental Protection Agency of alleged revenue data cover-up.
Our attempt is to obtain data on how much of these revenues have been collected and how they've been utilized was fruitless.
My name is Manu. Afful will bring you details of our headlines and many other stories shortly. Straight to a first story. The banking industry's non-performing loans ratio has surged to 24.1% in June 2024, up from 18.7% in June 2023. According to the central bank, despite improvements in the banking sector's performance, elevated credit risk poses a threat to the sector's recovery process. Apologies for that. We'll bring you details in our subsequent bulletins. Away from that, for the third consecutive time, government missed its Treasury bills target. Demand for Treasury bills remains stagnant. From June till date, average weekly demand from investors is about 3.9 billion cedis. And there's more in the following report. According to the latest auction results from the Bank of Ghana, government realized about 4 billion cedis at the end of the auction against a target of about 4.7 billion cedis, representing about 15% under subscription of the bills. All bids tendered were accepted and a chunk came from the 91-day bill, from which government realized about 2.4 billion cedis, representing 59.1% of the uptake. For the 182-day bill, 1.17 billion cedis was realized. About 477.58 million cedis worth of bids were tendered for the 364-day bill. Meanwhile, interest rates remained relatively stable. That of the 91-day bill was unchanged at 24.78%. For the 182-day bill, it went up marginally by 3 basis points to 26.74%, and that of the 1-year bill declined marginally to 27.85% from last week's 27.8%. Meanwhile, lead researcher at GTB Capital, Courage Butsi, says this has been the case because investors have no incentive to pump more into the T-bills market, whereas government's appetite for T-bills is high as it prepares for coupon payments of the DDEP bonds in August. He spoke to 3 Business.
I think you are seeing very high targets in recent auctions. And I guess the Treasury is preparing for the August coupon payment on the DD bonds. So you are seeing targets largely for the last 4 or so auctions averaging about 4.5 billion. There were instances recorded 5 billion. There's 4.7 for 2 auctions or so. So almost 4.7 billion over the last 3 or so weeks. Now, giving those high targets, which are above the refinancing obligation for the period anyways, it gives you the sense that the Treasury probably may be accumulating some buffers against either interest payment or coupon payment or some budgetary support. And the market probably may be reading into these things, and given yields are quite stagnant, the incentive to go in there hard is probably not as strong. I think these are the factors playing in the T-bill space in recent weeks.
That was the voice of Courage Butsi, lead researcher at GTB Capital. In more stories, insurance professionals are calling for a revision of insurance policy documents in Ghana to keep pace with digital transformation, new regulations, and emerging risks. The proposed updates aim to simplify language, enhance digital accessibility, and include coverage of issues like cyber threats and pandemic-related incidents. These changes are seen as crucial for improving customer satisfaction and maintaining competitiveness in the market. Lawrence Daniels is Country Director of Association of Young Insurance Professionals. We'll bring you details of that late, surely. The Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative has accused the Forestry Commission and the Environmental Protection Agency of allegedly hiding data on revenue they have collected. According to co-chair Dr. Steve Mantiao, all attempts by his outfit to obtain this data from the 2 state entities regarding how much revenue they have collected and how it has been expanded have gone unanswered. While Dr. Mantiao condemns the posture of these entities, he is urging authorities to take the right actions against them to compel them to be accountable.
When you have a transparency initiative, which is intended to arm citizens with information to be able to demand accountability, and yet some entities do not provide data, what it means is that you don't get to know how the resources that commonly belong to all of us are being managed by these entities. There is some additional mineral royalty for mining in forest reserves. This is managed by a committee called the Liaison Group and hosted by the Forestry Commission. Our attempt is to obtain data on how much of these revenues have been collected and how they've been utilized was fruitless. So we call on the Liaison Group and the Forestry Commission to be accountable, to be transparent in the collections and utilizations of these revenues. We also call on the Environmental Protection Agency. They collect substantial amounts of monies for various services they render. Ghanaians have a right to know how much they are collecting and how these monies are being used.
Well, you heard the voice of co-chair Dr. Steve Mantiao. He's co-chair of Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. We'll take you back to the insurance professionals who are calling for a revision of insurance policy documents in Ghana to keep pace with digital transformation, new regulations, and emerging risks.
With the advent of COVID, it brought to us certain ailments that were not even covered under our insurance policies. So in that regard, we need to review our policy documents to have such eventualities incorporated in it, especially with the life and also with the general business. Why am I saying this? You know, with COVID came with a lot of changes within our insurance space and even in the economy in general. So with the revision of the insurance policy documents, we can include claims or issues coming out of COVID. For instance, if a person, a life insurance policy covers for critical illnesses, right? I think a COVID kind of policy or ailment should be added in that regard, because most of the insurance policies don't have COVID in that regard.
Well, that over there was Country Director of Association of Young Insurance Professional, Lawrence Daniels. We'll take you back again to the banking industry's non-performing loans ratio, which has surged to 24.1% in June 2024, up from 18.7% in June 2023, according to the central bank.
However, the central bank believes that the consistent rebound in profits, adherence to recapitalization plans, and enforcement of strict credit underwriting standards will help ensure that banks remain on the path to full recovery and resilience. In its monetary policy release, the Bank of Ghana stated that the banking sector's performance in the first half of the year indicates continuous recovery from the impact of the domestic debt exchange program. Total banking sector assets grew by 33.3% to 323.1 billion cedis by the end of June 2024, compared to 21.2% growth by the end of June 2023. Profitability, liquidity, and efficiency indicators also improved over the period. The capital adequacy ratio adjusted for reliefs remained unchanged at 14.3% from June 2023 to June 2024. Without reliefs, the CAR was reported at 10.6% in June 2024, higher than the 4.7% recorded in June 2023.
That was a 3 Business News Desk report, and that's it for Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more stories, kindly log on to our website on www.3news.com. My name is Manu. Afful. Do stay tuned. Urban Blend is up next.